Alright, welcome back to HED 241 Biostatistics and Public Health. We are on section 14, coefficient of determination. So I want to preface this by saying coefficient of determination is a very in-depth concept. Okay, this is something that honestly I didn't really learn much about till I was doing my doctoral work. Maybe during my master's a little bit, but not really. I want you to not go in depth. I don't want you to Google anything. I don't want you to do anything outside of what is in your textbook, what is on these PowerPoints, and what is in the lecture that I say. Okay? If it's not in one of those three places, do not worry about it. Okay? Because anything you read is going to not be included. I can pretty much guarantee it. What I want you to know about it, okay, is you interpret R, Pearson's R. This is from the last section. I think the last two sections actually. Okay. R squared is coefficient of determination. Okay. So you simply square R. If R, which is Pearson's R, is 0.6, then R squared is 0.6 times 0.6, which equals 3.6. Okay. So your R squared coefficient of determination would be 0.36. Okay. Example, similar to the one we used last time. Looking at oral verbal scores, reading scores. Okay, so where are the positive relationships? Okay, low oral verbal score, 3, so that was the lowest. It was also the lowest reading score. Highest score. Okay, so what are the positive relationships? High oral verbal is associated with a high reading score. Same with the low. Low oral verbal score is associated with a low reading score. Okay. So can we say that vocabulary scores are predictive of subsequent reading scores? Yes. But how predictive? Okay. So with R squared, coefficient of determination, you're really moving from just saying that there's an association to actually predicting. Okay. Correlation is really focusing just on saying there's a relationship. Okay, now we're working to move towards prediction. Okay, so Pearson R is 0.9. That's your correlation. So we can say that the oral vocabulary scores are highly predictive of reading scores. But you can actually go on and be even more precise. So if you remember, this is what we've talked about before. This right here is nothing new. Okay, remember 0.9, 1 is perfect, so 0.9 is strong. Okay. Okay. So there's a variance, which is, remember, a variance is a difference in the scores on the reading test. When interpreting Pearson's R, an important question is this: what percentage of variance on one variable is accounted for by the variance on the other? Okay, so how much of the difference in the scores on the reading, okay, so like looking here, how much of these scores are accounted for by variance on these scores? But a better question is, what percentage of variance in reading scores is predicted by the variance in oral vocabulary scores? So predictive is better than just saying it's accounted for. Okay, so there's that question. It's easy, okay? You're going to just square R and multiply by 100, okay? Easy. So if you said that your R, remember we said back 2 slides ago, R was 0.9, not just making these numbers up, 0.9, okay? So 0.9 times 0.9 is 0.81. 0.81 times 100, because that's what it says right here, equals 81, which is 81%. So we've just answered the above question. 81% of the variance on one variable is predicted by the variance on the other variable. So in example 1. So this is example 1. Okay. 81% in perspective. drawing names at random, your ability to predict is 0%, right? So if you put every student in the classroom's name in the bowl, your ability to actually predict which name I'm going to pull out is 0. You can't predict that. Okay. If the R is 0.9, the ability to predict is 81% better than 0. Okay. So, and better than random ability. So you can't just randomly select if you're doing it that way. Okay. So it's much, much better. Okay. What about variance not accounted for? We can account for 81% of variance, which still leaves 19% of variance not accounted for. How do we get that? You have 100% minus 81% that we just said we found, which equals 19%. So we are 19% away from reaching perfection, 100%, in our ability to predict reading achievement. So we still cannot say with 100% certainty that if you score this on verbal, that you're going to score this on reading. Okay, can't say that still. Okay, so when you're looking at this, these are just across the board numbers. So here's your R that we used is 0.9. R squared is 0.81. So percent accounted for is 81%. Percent not accounted for is 19%. For your exam, I want you to be able to do these type calculations without this table. Okay, so if I tell you the R is 0.2, I want you to be able to calculate the R squared, as 0.04, which would tell you that 4% is accounted for and 96% is not. So I might ask you, if the R is 0.2, what percent of variance is not accounted for? Make sure you know how to do that. Those are the type of things I want you to understand about this chapter. Okay. Section 14 questions. Make sure, even if you don't have to do every single question, that you can answer every single question. Just to put it out there, if I tell you to skip questions, but you answer all of them, I will make sure all of your answers are correct. So definitely let me know if you have questions on any of this. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this, only follow what your textbook, what these slides say, and what I've said in this lecture. Do not Google all of this. It's really not going to be anything you need. Let me know if you have questions.